You're listening to the Mike on the Right podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to the Mike on the Right show. You're listening to the 27th episode, released November 3rd, 2025. And as always, I am broadcasting from the heart of the heartland in central Indiana, the crossroads of America, the great Hoosier State. Thank you so much for being here, for listening. Again, you can subscribe, 5-star ratings on wherever you listen, share, tell your friends. This show is here because of you, and I'm so thankful for your listenership and for your support. You can listen to this episode and all of those that came before it, the other 26, at mikeonright.com. It's going to take you to all the different platforms that you can listen to the audio, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio, all the different places you can do that. And also you can find us on YouTube. You can watch the video if you want to see my face while doing it, while watching this, or while listening. You can also watch the video. So thankful for you being here. 3 hot topics we're going to talk about today. First is the 2025 elections. And if you're a Hoosier, we don't have anything in 2025 unless you got a school referendum. 2025 elections across the nation that are happening this week. And by the time you listen to this, it'll be the day, if you're listening on Monday, it'll be the day before Election Day in those places. If you're not, the elections may have already happened, but whatever I say on this topic will be pertinent. But it's in New York, Virginia, New Jersey. I know there's probably other small local elections in other places, but those are the 3. What's going to happen there? And what does it mean for us today in places that are not those states? And what does it signify for the 2026 midterms that will be coming up a year from now? Then we're going to talk about the genocide going on in Nigeria, specifically at the hands of terrorists. And what is the U.S.'s intervention policy on this? What have they been saying? What have we been talking about? Should we not? We're going to talk about that. And then the third is the ensuing situation with Venezuela and the drug boats that you've been hearing about that the United States has been taking out prior to them getting to our borders or to other places. We're going to talk about what's going on geopolitically there between the 2 countries, an accusation that Venezuela made, and what does that mean for the United States. First topic are the elections coming up in New York City, specifically the state of Virginia and the state of New Jersey. Now, one of those things doesn't belong here. The New York City election is its own piece, and I want to talk about it for a second because it is incredibly significant. There's more of a correlation between the Virginia and the New Jersey races, which we will talk about. But these are 3 hot elections that everyone has been talking about. And why is it important for us to note it? So we have a socialist Democrat candidate. He has, and I'm not even just saying that to say it. That's exactly how he would describe himself, Mondami, who is probably going to win New York City's mayoral election. And oh boy, is that scary. He's leading almost 50% of the vote in what appears to be kind of a 3-way race. And what's interesting here is it's going to happen. He's going to win. He's going to win by a significant margin, and America's largest city is going to have a self-described democratic socialist. And how scary that is. And what's funny about that is, and this is, again, it's not my party, right? I mean, I'll pass judgment on a number of things just because that's what I do on the show. You know, I give you the facts and then I give you my opinion. And I don't really like to tell the other party what to do in its primary, just like I don't want them to tell me what we do in our primary as me as a Republican. But when he made it through, and he is, you know, now essentially again, there are other Democrats, independents, but that is definitely a scary situation that America's largest city is going to be run by a self-described Democratic socialist. And it's so funny. Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader he is the top Democrat in the House of Representatives, said just yesterday, I believe, or maybe the day before, that Mondami is not the future of our party. He is not where we are headed. Yet, he has trounced. Now, to be fair, Mayor Adams, the mayor who is about to be unseated and tossed out, had some big ethical issues. Andrew Cuomo, the other candidate who's running in this race, who was a Democrat, is the disgraced governor of the state. And so you've got some damaged goods, which probably isn't helping. But also, we have had historic inflation. We have had historic issues with our economy over the last several years, and it is a course correction and a knee-jerk reaction. That is, this guy's, we're going to have rent control, and so many things are going to be free, and we're going to take police off the streets because they're the ones that are really oppressing you, and all these different things that he has said, and he has made, and he has done. And yet the Democrats, we're always told as Republicans, we have to call out our extremist candidates. And we have to denounce them, and we have to not back them. But every single rank and file Democrat, from the governor down in the state of New York, is backed this guy. Which is insanely, so it's a double standard. If he truly is not the future of your party, if you are scared of further socialism entering your party, then you must denounce it. Just like we should denounce extremists in our party. Now, anything that's not the Democratic way, by Democrats, anyone that's a Republican is an extremist. If you voted for Trump or not, depending on your position or situation. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. But they should be denouncing him and said they're embracing him. And there's some other stuff in in Virginia that they're embracing that they shouldn't be. But that's going to happen, and that's going to be tough. But the other two elections in Virginia and New Jersey, that's much more pertinent to what's going to happen in the midterms next year. It's a precursor to what's going to occur. In Virginia, again, every 4 years in the off year for us in Indiana, this 2025 was the off year. The year after the presidential election is usually an election or a time that we don't have any elections in Indiana. I think we have some referendums related to schools, but those two states always have their big races. And in Virginia, they're electing, governor, lieutenant governor, an attorney general of the big three. In New Jersey, everyone's specifically following the governor's race. And they are both sets of elections too close to call. Now, Virginia always swings back and forth. They've had Republicans, they have Democrats, and the governor only gets 4 years. It's renewable, but you have to take a break. You could come back. So 4 years, you have to take a 4-year break, and you can come do it again. So it's one term. They can't be next to each other. And so, Glenn Youngkin, who's been governor, who kind of won in a surprise in 4 years ago in that election, now he's being replaced, and there's a Democrat and a Republican, and Winsome Sears is the Republican. She's currently the lieutenant governor, and that one's got a little bit larger margin. I thought maybe 46-41, 45-41. It's still pretty close to the margin of error. And again, whatever happens in Virginia, it's so weird because their polls are always pretty far off from the actual event. But the bigger issue in that race is the attorney general's race, where the Democratic attorney general candidate was caught a couple of years ago texting people who said they were uncomfortable, and you should stop saying this, that they were going to shoot Republican candidates, Republican families, those kind of things. Like they were going to physically execute them and kill them. And what have the Democrats done? They didn't ask him to get out of the race. Largely. There's some. But they've largely supported him. And Barack Obama's come to help the team. And, they've done a couple things. They've removed his name from the bus of the governor's candidate's bus on the Democratic side and things like that. But if we had a candidate that says, I'm going to go out and shoot Democrats, you darn good and well know that we would have to do everything to denounce the person. And we should. But the double standard is, we got to win, so the Democrats got to unite, even though we've got a guy on record saying he was going to shoot Republican candidates, that he was going to shoot Republican families. Shame. I don't care what party you're from and you're listening today. I don't care what ideology you're from and listening today. Shame on you if you support this. Shame on you. We should not be supporting this. But that set of races is too close to call, and it may even be a split ticket. You might have the Democrat governor candidate win, and the attorney general be a Republican, and who knows what's going to happen in the lieutenant governor's race, but they're all tight. But you know what's even tighter? Is the New Jersey governor's race. Now, the last time they had a New Jersey governor that was Republican was Chris Christie, and obviously that was an outlier, and it's real close to happening again. But I say all this to say, this is my point in Virginia, New Jersey, regardless of the circumstances, is that we are being told by these polls and these pollsters and these talking heads that the Republican brand is shot, that Trump is destroying the party, and these MAGA conservatives and all this stuff. If there was truly a national rejection of what the president and the party has been doing policy-wise, which is what they got elected on. And largely, we've been able to keep our promises so far. There's more to do. But if it truly was that deeply unpopular, there is no way that a Republican governor candidate who is embracing President Trump would be that close. Even if he loses by a couple points, there is no way this should not have been a blowout of 10 points or more. In the state of New Jersey, you have got to be kidding me. In the midst of a shutdown in Virginia, where there's a ton of federal workers who are currently out, and whether they blame whoever they blame, that's fine, but typically Republicans always get blamed for everything, no matter what. There's no way this should, even with the attorney general candidate's misstep, there shouldn't be numbers this close if it is truly a rejection. So even if the Democrats win on Tuesday in both of those states, in all of those races, the fact that it is that close in those states, Virginia being a blue hue of purple and New Jersey being very blue, and seems the working folks, though, are trending our way, there's no way it should be that close. And so what that tells you is that we're probably going to have another divided election. I believe the Senate is going to be held by the Republicans for sure. The House is going to be tipping one way or the other. Redistricting is probably going to be interesting to see how that affects that. But we may have a very tight majority either way, Republicans or Democrats. It tells you, though, that is not a rejection of the policies. Again, you don't have to like President Trump. But the core policies, which is what he got elected on, what Republicans got elected on nationwide, is not as unpopular as they will tell you. Now, a year from now, we may be having a different conversation because something could happen or change. I truly believe that President Trump would have been reelected if it had not been for COVID and the response the way it went. Because I don't think the policies are unpopular. I think maybe the way he goes about it is unpopular. And that's, again, Trump is because of, he is only here because of the unkept promises of Republicans and Democrats for a generation. So don't let anybody tell you in the Virginia and New Jersey races, regardless of what happens, if the Democrats win, it's a clean sweep, the Democrats are coming for the Republicans. It is embarrassing that it's going to be within a couple of points in New Jersey, for sure. It is going to be embarrassing. If these policies are truly that vile and Republicans are Americans are disgusted, then this should be a blowout. Watch for that. Keep watching for that. It's going to happen. That you're probably some of you are going to listen to the show after that election. It's going to be close. Let's move on to the next topic, and this one's is a tough one for me. It's what's going on in Nigeria and what's going on with the persecution of Christians in that country that's been going on for several years, and what's the U.S. Doing with that. But there are Christian communities, Boko Haram and some of these other terrorist organizations who have been coming down. They come down against Muslims as well. But very recently, there has just been this surge of the murdering of Christians in this nation. Now, if you don't know Nigeria's past, it's obviously a very storied one. There's about 200 million people that live in the country. It is the largest African nation. And the north is predominantly Muslim, and the south is predominantly Christian. It's almost like two countries. And for decades, terrorists and anti-Christian groups have killed and persecuted Christians in that nation. And then, of course, also some Muslims don't get along with each other, so sometimes they attack each other in the north. But very recently, there has been this surge of Christians being killed by these groups, and it all started with these 200 Christian villagers who were killed in a wave of attacks in June of 2025 by heavily armed militants. And it's stunning. They're killing priests and they're killing churchgoers and it's insane. And what I don't get is, so President Trump has decided, hey, I think we've got to stop this. Now, there's a case to be made that should the U.S. intervene all the time in all things? Well, the answer is no. What is the threshold that the U.S. should intervene in situations like this? I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer. Every president is different. Every Congress is different. As time changes, but there is a lot of anti-interventionalist folks, especially those who support President Trump, who otherwise would not be for this, but because President Trump's for it, they are. And in this case, I think they need to be. You know, Nigeria there's been all kinds of even historic kidnappings and things that have occurred in the Obama administration, and Boko Haram being a part of all that those terrorist groups. And the president has said, hey, if the Nigerian government does not get tough on this, we are going to have to step in and intervene. And of course, Nigeria has said, we welcome your help, but you have to respect our sovereignty. So it needs to be in coordination with the government. I guess I just don't know how much I trust the government to do what's right in this situation. Now, I'm also not saying that the United States need to come in, they need to invade. It probably needs to be some precision strikes on terrorist groups, because there's two reasons why it's important. One, and most important, we have to respond for better or for worse. I'm not saying that America needs to be the world's police, but America is the last shining beacon, shining light on a hill in the world. When you've got countries like Canada and the United Kingdom who are arresting people for what they say online about there only being two genders, how can we trust countries like that, and they're our allies, to stand up and do the right thing in the world? We can't. And America was sliding down that way. If it was not for President Trump, like him or hate him, we were headed to that same place. And so America is the last nation in the world who will step up and say no more. And so I am not advocating for boots on the ground, but I certainly believe, so I guess let me get to the second point. So the first point is we have to stop the persecution of Christians when it's genocide, especially in this genocide. If left to their own devices, the Nigerians in the northern part of the country that are backed by, who are in these terrorist organizations, not just Boko Haram, they're just the one I know the best from the previous stuff that they've done. There are certainly others. There is no way that they will just stop because we ask them or stop because we threaten them. They're going to have to destroy their capabilities. And that should be done in concert with the Nigerian government. Because also, the United States not only needs to help them, but then they need to support them to do it on their own when the United States is done. That is the type of interventionalism that some people find unpopular, but it is absolutely the right thing to do when true genocides occur, which is what this is. I mean, I'm reading it. You know, in 2025, 1,200 churches have been destroyed. This year, and the year's not, we're in the last quarter, the last 2 months of the year. They're destroying churches. They're killing priests. They're killing Christian parishioners. They're killing Christian families. They're destroying their towns and their settlements. That is a genocide when they are wiping them out based on who they are and their ideology. Terrorists. So yes, the U.S. should absolutely intervene by helping strike those capabilities. And so join me in praying for our country. Join me in praying for Nigeria. Join me in praying for the persecuted Christians. Join me in praying for the Muslims for two reasons. One, that they would find peace, and two, that they would convert. They would see the error of their ways. There's no reason for this to be occurring. And I'm telling you right now, the United States standing up is absolutely the right thing to do. And I've seen several people very disappointedly. They're like, oh, Trump coming in here to do his thing in Nigeria. He really doesn't care about Christians. He's just coming in because he's going to get something out of it. And he's going to, play kingmaker in these whatever. And they hate him. Now, so listen, if President Biden had done this, he would be hailed as a historic net positive on religious liberty. But since Trump's doing it, we have to hate on it because it's Trump, even if it's right. We need to stop hating things that are right because of the person who's done it. And as Christians, we are called to, again, we have a constitutional republic, and we elect our representatives and those kind of things, and we have a voice in the process. But we have to stop downing leaders that when they do the right thing. And just because President Trump does it and just because you hate him doesn't mean this isn't the right thing and you can't support it. You want to hate him on the economy. You want to hate him on immigration. You want to hate him on a government shutdown. You want to hate him on whatever, on turning Greenland into the 51st state. Fine. fine. But there is nothing you can say that he's doing something wrong by looking to help stop a genocide in Nigeria, where the government very clearly can't do it on its own or would have done it already, or it can't be trusted to do it. We've got to do it. I've got to move on. I wish I could talk about this one for 20 more minutes, and I can't. But please pray. And hopefully by the time you listen to this, the United States has done something to stop these terrorists and to push them back or to wipe out their capabilities altogether. Last item I have for you today is the ensuing situation in Venezuela, and now what the Venezuelan government is telling the world that it thinks the United States has done, and how people on the left are like, yeah, Venezuela must be telling the truth. Down Trump. As you've been hearing, the United States has been striking drug boats coming into international waters and towards our country to bring dangerous drugs to our communities. And they may be taking the boat to the United States, they may be taking it to Mexico or another country to get it through, but their destination is to spread drugs to our communities. And we've struck now, I believe, 7 or 8 vessels near Venezuela that the administration says that it has proof, and it should provide it certainly to Congress, that they were trafficking narcotics. And what's happened here is that the intelligence that we have should first of all, I'm going to say this first before I get into the Venezuela piece, should absolutely be looked at by Congress. I agree that there should have to be a check and balance on that. I believe that the administration has the right information, that these boats are not just leaving Venezuela to go wherever they're going for a joyride. They're not fishing in high-speed boats. And so that certainly should be provided. But what we have here now is that the Venezuelans and the Venezuelan government is telling the world, we caught American intelligence folks who were setting up a false flag attack, or essentially creating like this almost like a play out in the water that's going to make it look like there's drugs and there's this attack, to make it look like Venezuela is at fault. So it gives the Americans more of a narrative to come in and whether put boots on the ground or attack further or what have you, with no evidence other than saying it out loud. And what has the left hooked up on? Venezuela has caught them doing this red flag thing. Shame on President Trump for doing this. They've been caught red-handed. We knew that these boats that he's destroyed were not drug that the intelligence is bad, that he's just doing this to be a king and a tyrant. Are you really going to take the country that has killed its own people, that has nationalized almost every industry, run it to the ground, where grocery stores have almost no food to sell, where not one but 2 dictators, Maduro currently and Chavez before him, who have absolutely isolated and decimated that country, and joins in with countries like Iran and Russia and China to be a part of a list of nations that we are concerned about, who are not the friends of the United States, who constantly work to undermine the interests of the United States and the interests of peace and the interests of harmony and what have you. And we're going to take their word, a dictator's word, over President Trump. And I laugh because oh, well, Trump is a dictator. If Trump was a dictator, the government would not be shut down. If Trump was a dictator, the courts couldn't stop him from certain things. If Trump was a dictator, take your pick. But we have a confirmed dictator in Maduro, in Venezuela, saying the United States is setting up some false flag attack, and the left has just said, we're going to accept, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's got to be true because he said it. Shame on Trump. We have to stop listening to these folks. They have a right to say what they want. You in this nation, you have a right to be wrong. You have a right to speak your mind. But I am not, for one, going to accept the words of a confirmed dictator that is actually one. You have to change the definition to make Trump one. This guy, and he's a dictator from passed down from a dictator who died. No, I'm not taking their word for it. The intelligence that the administration has should be shared with the intelligence committees. And if it is leaked, then those folks who leak it should go to prison. I will tell you that right now. If it is leaked, because again, there's a reason why we don't just share our intelligence on CNN so that other people who are listening to it around the world can get set up to well, hey, the United States is looking in this quadrant. We're going to go to another one and pass our drugs. There's a reason why that information has to be secret. And I'm not saying that Congress shouldn't know, that certain members of Congress shouldn't know because the intelligence committees are set up that way. But what's going to happen is if they don't like it, they're just going to share it and leak it so that they can attack the president. And half the time, they don't leak the truth. Actually, most of the time, they don't. Or they don't understand it, or they don't have it all, or what have you. Or they bend it so they can have... No. I am not taking Venezuela's word, and you shouldn't either. We're going to continue to watch this. Folks, thank you for listening today. I'm so thankful that you've listened and you continue to join. This show is for you, and it means the world to me that you would listen for however long it goes on. I'm so thankful that you're here. Again, if you could subscribe, 5-star ratings, tell your friends, share our content. All these episodes and more, MikeOnTheRight.com. It'll take you to your favorite podcasting app. It'll take you to YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great